Well, welcome everybody. Welcome both Hutt City and Upper Hutt City councillors and officers, and also we have, I see Wellington Water officers in the background and members of the public. My name is Alison Geddes. I'm the Director of Environment and Sustainability at Hutt City Council, and I'm just opening the meeting under delegation of the Chief Executive until we've appointed a chair. So you'll see on the screens are the emergency procedures. Could you just take a moment to note those? And then would you like to join me in the opening formality to the karakia? Whakatakati hau ki te uru, whakatakati hau ki te tonga, kia mākina mipira ki te uta, kia ehi ake. Huka, he hau, te hei Māori ora. I've received an apology from Councillor Shaw. Are there any other apologies? I move that the apology received from Councillor Shaw be accepted and leave of absence be granted. As I have a mover and seconder, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those say no. I declare the motion carried. Second item on the agenda, election of chair and deputy chair. I'll call for the nominations for the chair position. Can I have a mover? Oh, I call. Can I? Are there any other nominations? As I have, can I have a seconder? As I have a mover and seconder, I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against say no. I declare the motion carried.
Well, thank you, everybody. Next item of business is the nominations for the Deputy Chair position. And I'd like to start that off by nominating Councillor Griffiths as the Deputy Chair for the Hutt Valley Services Committee. Just checking if there are any other nominations. If not, could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Dyer. With a move and a second, I'll now put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against no. I declare that carried. Congratulations, Blair. Now moving on to item 4 on the agenda, which is public comment. We've got 30 minutes allowed, but we just have 2 speakers at this stage. The first of which is Danielle Willis, or Danielle Wills, beg your pardon. Please come forward and keen to hear what you have to say.
Fantastic, thank you. Kia ora koutou. My name is Danielle. I'm a resident around Seaview Wastewater Plant, and that's what I've come to talk to you about. The residents are feeling really dismissed and frustrated. We came to the council meeting, not this one, another one, a year ago, and you asked us to report when we noticed the odour, so we have. It's affected us while we try and work from home, while we're picking the kids up from school, while we're enjoying a barbecue on a summer's evening. In the last year, Wellington Water published an odour report from Air Quality Consulting, which dismisses our experiences from someone who only visited periodically over 8 days. The report blamed our complaints on temporary construction, which is long since finished and gone, and we're still experiencing the odour. The report has been shared and reported as objective fact. Since then, Greater Wellington Regional Council has investigated over 100 complaints, agreeing with many of them. They found instances serious enough to issue 23 infringements. These are agreeing the odour is offensive and well beyond the border. Rather than acknowledging the struggle businesses and residents have had to put up with, Wellington Water is arguing the fines. In their letter disputing the fines, they're now saying odour is subjective. They didn't seem to think this was the case when they were sharing their report. In the report, there were 6 priority items for remediation, of which remediating the biofilter was only one. We've had no feedback on the progress of the other 5 items or any items on the secondary level priority list. Despite the increasing number of complaints, last year Wellington Water presented some options for investment in the long-term plan, and under every option, the odour control project was recommended to be delayed by up to 6 years. This has since had a quick change around before the public meeting in December, and we've heard nothing since. At the meeting, we were encouraged to sign up to an interested parties list. I emailed the appropriate community email list at Wellington Water on the 8th of December, asking to be added to the mailing list, and I've still received nothing. I sent the info at email list on the 14th of December asking for information about this project, including what its name was so I could refer to it appropriately. Given there was December, I gave it to the end of January before following up. I then asked them to respond within 2 days, or I'd log it as an Official Information Act request. 2 days later, they only acknowledged it by saying they've now logged it as an OIA. I've just received an email saying the deadline has passed, but they need an extension. It's been nearly 3 months since I asked. I emailed HCC asking for information about the effectiveness of the equipment in this project on the 22nd of November. It was transferred to Wellington Water and again needed an extension. I finally got the information on the 12th of February, 10 days short of 3 months. Within this time, Wellington Water were in the news for staff being bored with nothing to do. We'd like to know when the plant will start meeting its consent. When can we have proper engagement on this? We're feeling forgotten and ignored, and it's not good enough. Apparently there's a community meeting coming up. I know nothing about it, only because we're sharing information. Sorry. It's not on the Facebook, it's not anywhere. Will you advertise it properly, or we again have to pay our own money to print flyers and do a flyer drop around the region? We're having to share OAAs to get information. It's not good enough. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Danielle, and appreciate you coming and sharing the serious concerns with us today. Some members may have some questions now, if you don't mind taking those, and the item relating to wastewater is early on our agenda, so you're welcome to stay in here. You may have some responses from officers in relation to your comments.
Thank you.
Councillors, any questions for Ms Wills? Councillor Parkin.
Kia ora, thank you for coming and thank you so much for presenting. If you don't, we don't necessarily hear this. And one of the questions I have is, how many times have you reported the smell through the time period since between that year?
I didn't much last year, because I thought, we've reported it, you're aware of it. We had trust that it would then be investigated and dealt with. Mm-hmm. Finally feeling like it's not getting any traction. Yeah, I have started reporting it, so I probably report weekly, fortnightly. Cool. And I occasionally report to Hutt City Council, which is where Wellington Water tells us to report to. But I'm finding I don't even get a response. So at least when I report to Greater Wellington Regional Council, they'll respond to me.
And thank you for the reports, because it's those reports that actually kick off the system and actually make sure that it puts the pressure on and gives us the tracking. So
yeah,
as frustrating as it is, thank you for doing it.
Thanks.
Are you aware of the number of reports that have been put through?
That is going to be one of my questions to officers.
It's hundreds.
Yeah.
So it's not making much difference.
But It's not a fast process. I will definitely agree with you, but I
Yes.
will say it will make a difference, and please keep it up.
Thanks. We are encouraging people to, but of course, you know, we've all got lives, we're all busy. You have to be quite determined to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. You know, it's easier to go, oh, that sucks and smells, but you're in the middle of going to touch rugby practice, you're in the middle of something else. It actually takes quite a lot of determined practice to keep reporting.
Councillor Dyer?
Kia ora, thank you so much for coming in. You talked about there about some timeframes of trying to join the mailing list. Have you had sort of acknowledgement that you're now on this list, or you still think you're in this murky area of waiting to
I've
find
got
out?
no idea. So the only way that I get information is when Kylie receives it and posts it to Facebook, and that's how I found out about that meeting that's coming up.
Cool, thank you.
Any further questions? If not, thank you very much.
Thanks.
The other item of public comment we have was from Daniel Crisp, who wasn't able to be here, so he's submitted a paper copy. I think councillors may have seen this already, so thank you. So we'll just take that as having been read, and I will just ask the officers to make a general comment, at least in relation to the concerns. I think at this stage, a number of these are questions of detail, which we may not have to hand, but we'll get at least a high-level comment when that item comes up on the agenda. Oh, yes. Councillor Carson.
That's it. Got it. I just wanted to know, obviously the Akatara Cemetery development was in the Hutt City Council's long-term plan, so I presume it was in Hutt City Council's long-term plan, and that went out for public consultation 3 years ago or whatever. So my understanding would be that in fact the Hutt City ratepayers and public would have had some information about the Akatara Cemetery through the long-term plan.
I'm not entirely sure myself. I don't know if an officer has a response, but Mr. Hodgins.
I can't be 100% sure, but what I do know is that monies have been included in the 10-year plan, the LTP, but I don't believe it's an item that necessarily has been singled out as one for specific consultation. But I'm not 100% sure on that.
Thank you, Mr. Hodgins. I wonder if there's going to be more questions, whether it's better to take them during the particular item on the agenda rather than now. Up to your discretion, Councillor Griffiths. Okay. All right then, so let's move along to item 5, which is the conflict of interest declarations. Does any councillor have a conflict to declare? If not, we'll move along to item 6, which is the minutes appearing on page 5 of our agenda. Does any member have a question or comment in relation to the content of the minutes, the accuracy of the minutes? Thank you, Councillor Carson.
In the minutes about the Barber Grove project, it said that the additional cost would be finalised by the December 23. And in the appendix to the paper that we're going to consider, it says it's still under discussion. So this is a never-ending story, and we've been hearing this for months and months now, and every time I come to this meeting, the Barber Grove additional costs are still being sorted out. So I would like a definitive time frame about when the costs will be sorted out, please.
Thank you. Again, can I get a response to that during the following item on the agenda, please, officers? Thank you. I see a nod. Any other concerns or comments regarding the minutes? If not, I'll move that the minutes of the meeting of the Hutt Valley Services Committee held on the 24th of November 2023 be confirmed as a true and correct record. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. So I'll now move that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against no. Declare that carried. So now we're up to item 7 on our agenda, which is the wastewater joint venture update for the period 1st of November 23 to 31st of January 24. Thank you, Mr. Hodgins, and we've got also officers from Wellington Water Limited. Perhaps you can introduce them. I've got a list of 3 and I see 2, so I wouldn't want to get a name wrong.
Kia ora tātou. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the 3 gentlemen with us today from Wellington Water are Blair Johnson, who is Head of Wastewater Contracts, deals with the contract with Veolia and the plant. Gary Cullen, who is Head of Major Projects, and Tim Blackman, who is Senior Advisor, Resource Management and Environment. And so Tim has been dealing with the consents that we're working through at the moment. So he's here to answer any specific questions on that. In relation to the report before you, just got a couple of things to comment on first of all. The first one is acknowledging the real concerns of residents and people who work in Seaview area regarding the wastewater treatment plant odour. It is an issue that is being taken seriously, and there will be some information that Blair will be able to share with us today on what is happening at the moment. I just want to point out that in paragraph 12, while we've put in 13 million into the draft LTP, instructions have been given to Wellington Water to commence that work immediately. So we're not waiting till July in order for the planning of these works. We have asked Wellington Water to get straight into it and start working on the plans that will need to be put in place to get these improvements through the plant. And there are a number of improvements that are going to occur. In respect of that, there is the public meeting that is coming up on the 21st of March, 21st. So that's going to be at 5:30 p.m. at the Sports House down at Hutt Park. And what we have asked Wellington Water to do is to have a quarterly meeting rather than an annual meeting so that we can advise residents of the update on what's happening with the odour issue in particular, but any other matters in relation to the plant. We've also asked that Wellington Water advise residents of any works that are taking place at the plant that may create a short-term issue with odour. Again, that's where screens are being opened up for maintenance to occur on plant that could cause that additional odour. So that is kicked into place. I am a little concerned that a resident has asked to be added to that list and hasn't heard anything. So that's something that I'll be taking up with Wellington Water after this meeting. They're the main things I just want to touch on at this stage. In terms of paragraph 26, though, just to advise that the Ropu met earlier this week and is meeting on a monthly basis now to work through those issues in regards to solutions that might be put forward in terms of that consent that is being prepared, and Tim's here to answer any specific details of questions on that. So I'll just leave it there at the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Hodgins. I'm sure we'll have a few questions, but perhaps I'll just start with one of my own. One of the things I found quite concerning about Ms. Wool's comments was the length of time to get responses. I don't know the reasons for that, but it's obviously a very stressful thing for residents to have to face this, and I imagine a big contributor to that is the uncertainty of when things will improve. And so I hope you could follow up with the Wellington Water in relation to the processes that are being used to get those responses out, because it's not going to solve the problem, but at least knowing, being able to get information quickly and regularly through that type of process, I think would at least give a little bit of, not certainty, but a bit more understanding of what's coming up, rather than waiting for meetings or newsletters. So I see you nodding, so look forward to a bit of feedback perhaps at our next meeting as to what's going wrong or went wrong on those occasions and what's being done about it.
Yes, I will follow up on that, Mr. Chairman. I just add that a full communications plan is being finalised right now through Wellington Water, and that will involve looking at how we can better keep the community updated with progress. So that will be regular monthly newsletters or information that's made available online, and these regular meetings. But I might ask Blair if he wants to just add some further comment there.
Yeah, so we've had some, good morning everyone. We've had some feedback around the level of communication, both from council officers and from councillors themselves. So we've developed an overarching communication plan for the plant, which will cover ongoing activities, ongoing day-to-day activities, and also upcoming project work as it progresses. Part of the feedback was we were reporting on a monthly basis plant performance and any issues, and that was being posted onto our website. However, the feeling was that wasn't going far enough, and the request was made that we push that information out rather than asking the community to find it on our website. So that's part of the plan, and that will be done on a monthly basis, as Bruce has mentioned, via a newsletter. I share the concern and the comment made regarding the interested parties list, we call it, those members of the community that wish to be advised, and I will follow up on that because that is our key methodology of registering community interest, and it's very important that the community are kept informed.
Thank you. I have a question from Councillor Carson, and then I've got a few others following.
More than one question, but I'll do the first one first. I refer to para 9 in the paper where it says Greater Wellington Regional Council has issued 26 infringement notices to Wellington Water and Viola, 13 for odour discharges and 13 for breaches of abatement notice. And it goes on to say that Wellington Water are disputing these infringement notices. So I would like to know why Wellington Water are disputing the infringement notices and what the Greater Wellington Regional Council's response. And I notice it goes ongoing discussions, but I notice from experience these ongoing discussions get nowhere. And why is Wellington Water disputing the infringement notices? I thought we would just get on and deal with the problem.
So the 26 infringement notices that are noted in the report, 13 of those relate to breaches, odour breaches, so offensive or objectionable odour beyond the boundary. Those infringement notices aren't being challenged. What we have asked GWRC to comment on and to respond to is their approach to breaches for the abatement notices. The 13 infringements that were raised and the abatements associated with each of those we consider to be one event over a period of time, and we're questioning the application of their powers under for the abatement notices.
Well, you haven't answered the question, I'm afraid, sir. I asked, why are you arguing about the infringement notice on the abatement notice? Why?
We feel it's part of our duty and responsibility to the community to clarify these issues with the regulator.
And what is the cost, please?
I'm afraid I can't answer that.
I take it we'll have a bit of information forthcoming at a subsequent meeting or in the future on that one. Thank you. Next, we have a question from Councillor Parkin.
Kia ora. So thank you for noting that you do advertise the information on the website. However, I've had a very quick look to try and find it on the website. I can't find anything. What search engine optimization are you using for that?
Could you just repeat the question, sorry?
What search engine optimization are you using to make sure that people can find that information easily?
Oh, that's not a question I can answer, but I can follow up for you if you'd like that.
Councillor Newell.
Thank you very much. You know, some of these responses that we're getting, given that we only meet quarterly, at our last meeting, I think it was, when we heard so much about the odour issues, I'm surprised that we're 4 months down the track. And in fact, things seem to be worse than they were previously. I'd like to know what the impact is on the budget and just the comms, the emphasis on comms. This is great, but I think what the residents want is an emphasis on fixing. And so, you know, all this effort spent on comms, but what about the effort spent on fixing? Thank you.
What I might do is ask one of my colleagues to talk to the effort on fixing the problem. What I would say is it is a long-term issue, and we work very hard at the plant to meet our consent compliance. I would say, or would like to add at this point, that we have acknowledged the odour issue in the past. We do acknowledge it, and we have apologised to the community for it, and we understand that it is a huge issue for them, and that's evident today from the residents here today. So the intention and the feedback that we had from previous meetings was to improve the communication, which we have been doing, and in parallel with that, there is a project in place and underway to provide solutions for the odour issues at the plant, and perhaps I can pass to Gary to make comment on that.
Morning, everyone. My team has recently picked up the project. It's inevitable that the operations team will do everything they can with the existing plant to optimise that as much as they can while we stand up a new project. So that's come to us recently. We're now fast tracking it, and we expect to have a project management plan. I expect it to be this month. And that will, although it will inevitably follow a period of design and investigation, which takes a while, at least we'll have some more certainty on the timeframes, and we're currently working through that. So I expect us to have some news fairly soon.
Thank you. Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, Chair. My question is, a few meetings ago, I'm sort of reiterating Councillor Newell's comments. We asked that more information be shared out to the public, that it was most important, it was high priority, and to have public still coming in and saying that these things aren't met. You're saying you've passed that team, you've got a team working on a solution for comms and for, how is it that it gets to, like Councillor Newell says, 4 months later, and we're talking about comms still? I mean, do you have a comms department, or, yeah?
Yes, so following the last meeting, we held a public meeting in December where we gave an update on the project planning. It is a complex range of options that are being looked at the moment, so it does take time. There's $13 million of expenditure in the LTP for this work, and so it's got to be carefully planned. It's complex and it's got to be carefully planned, and that's what's being undertaken at the moment. We are I just finished. There have been a number of operational maintenance work that's been undertaken, and we've been attempting as best we can to ensure that the community kept up to date with those activities. And by activities, I mean cleaning, replacement of the biofilter media, which was quite widely publicised, and other maintenance activities to the ducting and odorous areas of the plants and those sorts of things.
Supplementary, Councillor Griffiths.
So my question was more, I mean, I realise that we've got the budgets, it takes time, it's hard to, get these things into play pretty much. But the easiest part of it is actually the communication side of things. And I mean, when we're getting public coming, and I mean, it's not a huge amount of public coming. I realise we've got a lady coming and telling us today emotively, but there is a group out there that don't feel like they're getting communicated to, that are making it's very hard for them to find the information. I mean, is there an issue with them? They come to City Council, they then get pushed to Wellington Water, or they come to Wellington Water, they get pushed to Council. I'm sort of losing how it's all falling down so hard.
That's a little difficult to answer. I think we recognised, I guess, from the last meeting that there was a communications gap, and this communication plan is designed to try and fix that. I've already indicated that I have our main channel is our website and our interested parties listing. So I am very concerned that one resident here today has tried to get onto that list and hasn't been able to, and I will take that up with our comms team. And we're hopeful that the more frequent community liaison groups quarterly and the monthly newsletters that we'll push out to that group will improve the situation and will improve it quickly.
Councillor Dyer.
Yeah, there's obviously two separate issues here. One's the comms on the plan, the other's fixing it. I'll just stick with the comms plan for now. That's where we are at the moment. When do you expect this comms plan to be finished, and when do you expect it to be implemented?
We expect it to be finished this week for consultation with council officers here next week. So we'll send that through for their comments, and it can be implemented virtually immediately. I would say that our timetabling around our current monthly reporting is sort of the first 2 weeks of the new month. So subsequent to that, newsletters and so forth can be pushed.
So residents could expect the first update within the first 2 weeks of April?
No, I think we could expect them to get something this month.
I mean, a follow-up question on that. At the December meeting, obviously a lot was assured around joining this interested parties list. How many, other than the email sort of saying, hey, we're doing work tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. to fix something that's broken, how many sort of proactive comms have been sent out to this list since December?
That's a difficult question to answer. I'm afraid I'm not quite sure what the answer to that is. We have started the maintenance communications, but other than that, I'm not too sure.
Maybe I could add to that because I get copied into them. So I have seen, and they've only really started in the last 3 weeks or so, and I've seen 3 of them.
And those are all notifications of maintenance coming up. They're not sort of, hey, here's what's happening with the biofilter or any of the bigger picture stuff.
That's correct.
Councillor Newell, and then Mayor Guppy after that.
Yes, I think if it was at our last meeting that we were introduced to someone who, just correct me if I'm wrong here, who had expertise around odour.
Steve Hutchison is the senior advisor or the principal advisor at Wellington Water for wastewater, and he certainly is an expert in this area. He's not here today, he's on leave, and he has I think he's been through the process of being a calibrated nose.
Yeah, look, you said you're going to have a public meeting come up. Is Viola going to be at the public meeting? Because I didn't hear their names. You talked about Wellington Water and City Council. Are they going to be there?
Yeah, Viola are required to attend, and they do attend
Okay,
all
well,
the of those meetings.
And the other question I have is that we never had issues before Viola took over. And I can recall Wellington Water giving us a passionate speech here about why Viola should be taking over. I think the heat should be going on Viola because surely the question about all these issues have arrived since they've taken over. Look, going back a couple of years, it said, I'll replace a few of the filters and all will be well. Now we're replacing 70% of the filters. And now we get to the point I see now, the filters aren't going to fix it. It's now the ageing of the plant. It's the goalpost keeps moving all the time. I'd be questioning the competence of the people running the outfit.
The only comment that I'd make in regards to that is the fact that the plant, a lot of the plant equipment is at the end of its life. And so we are in that period where there is breakdowns and failures and it's not working as effectively as it should. We've replaced the biofilter medium recently that had been there for, 7 or 8 years. So that's why the investment in the next few years in the plant is quite, I think there's a total of 195 million in the 10-year plan that's coming up, a lot of which is in the first few years. So it just shows you that that plant has come to the end of its working life.
Councillor Carstens.
The odour issue's been going on not for just 3-4 months. It's been going on for more than 12 months. So I would have thought a communications plan would have been produced well earlier. I'm quite surprised about now we're going to do a communications plan, but I'm more worried about the whole history of the whole Seaview plant. And the Hutt City Council received from Hutt City Council some horrific figures about Seaview plant replacement, etc., over the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And I'm just wondering why that information didn't come to the Hutt Valley Services Committee, who's responsible for looking at monitoring the Seaview sewage plant. And so I'd like to see, in fact, coming to this committee for the next meeting, just what are all the details of the capital investment required over the next 10 years? Because the visibility isn't great. And in fact, when we considered the figures given to us for inclusion of the long-term plan, there were no details provided by Hutt City Council via Wellington Water. And we've been asking for that information as well, and we haven't yet received it. So I would like to see for the next report, the next meeting of the Hutt Valley Services Committee, a paper setting out the full intended replacement program, capital costs for the next 10 years, and details why we need to do it. And secondly, I'd like to see a paper coming to this committee next meeting setting out the history of this odour problem right from the very start, when it was first detected and public first started complaining about it. Because I remember a year ago that these complaints started and nothing really was done in terms of the complaints until they really started to get large and into the public media. And so that's 2 papers I'd like to see that come to this committee, please, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Hodgins.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just in response to that comment regarding working through this committee, we identified last year that had been an issue in the past, and so we had a specific meeting at which we presented to this committee what we were looking at and putting in the 10-year plan. So we specifically identified that as an issue from previous years, that the communication hadn't been done particularly well in terms of both councils being advised at the same time of what was coming up. And so we did that very thing last year. I can't remember what the date was, but I think it was October. We went through that process.
if I could just follow up on the second line of Mr. Carson's comment regarding a history of the odour complaint and when it was raised, what's been done and so on over the last 12 months or so. I think that was your other point.
I think you'll find that there's always been odour complaints. So, I mean, how far do you go back? But I'll ask Blair maybe to comment on that.
Sorry, Chair, that isn't the request. In fact, hopefully I've got the support of my fellow committee members. That is not just off-the-cuff request. That is a request for a full report to come back to this committee next meeting. None of this fluff, what we're hearing. I want to see a full report on what happened when it first started, what all the complaints were, and a full report on what's been happening in a time scale frame, right? Because I'm sick of hearing this every quarter meeting we come to. And it's got to stop and it's got to be fixed. The next point is that meeting in October that was held at the council, at Hutt City Council, was very high level. No detail was provided on those capital estimates whatsoever. So I'm asking for a report to show what are the various projects and the time frame for each of the projects that make up that amount of money. And in fact, I think it was 900,000 that there were 900 odd million that they were talking about from memory. Each of the projects spread over the 10 years and also what is happening in each of those years. That is the investigation, the various program steps of a project for each of those projects. We do not get enough information through this committee about these capital projects whatsoever.
Yes, we'll be in a position at the next meeting to be able to get into the detail of that. Gary's just informed me that the plan that they're working on should have sufficient information that will be able to provide that to the committee. But I'd also ask Blair maybe to comment on terms of the report on the odour.
Well, the first point I'd make is the plant isn't designed to be odour-free, and so there's likely to have been odour issues over a period of time. We can provide a report on the level of complaints, the number of complaints that we've recorded over the past 12 months and what each of those relate to and how they've been dealt with. And also we can provide a report on the operational maintenance work that's been done to the odour management system or odour systems, if that's what's being asked for. I think that's what's being asked for.
I think so. That would be very helpful. Thank you. Both of those two reports that were referred to, I think, would go some way to progressing the matter at our next meeting. I've had some further hands. Councillor Parkin.
Through you, Chair. I was just wondering if we could also have much more of a long-term analysis on those numbers. Obviously, it's not a short-term issue, so I'm thinking if we can go back maybe 5 years in the data, and I'm not after individual drilling down, but just in terms of, say, monthly odour reports, and just seeing whether or not we have had a statistical change, and then also in terms of the report, in terms of the breakdown of the information for the changes planned for the plant, which of those are directly going to address odour control, and do we actually know where the odour is coming from, and do we have that under control? As you said, the plant is not built to be odour-free, but obviously the change in density of population, etc., now is actually putting more of a pressure on the plant needing to come to that level of control. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. That was a good discussion. I still see... No? Another question, Councillor Dyer.
Yeah, my previous questions around the timeframes of the comms plan. Now my questions are more around the actual work that we need to do. The previous update we had sort of said biophysical media won't completely get rid of the issues, but it will go quite along the way. Paper today is kind of saying this is about as good as it's going to get now. We need to fix the stuff underneath. So my questions now are more about the timeframes for the actual fixing the issue. So the air system underneath and the other capital works, that 12 million stuff I know is not going to be fixed in the next couple of months. So when do we sort of expect there to actually be a significant drop-off in the odour issues?
Yeah, we'll have the project management plan this month, and that will firm up that programme of activity. But I can tell you what I expect is that the rest of this year will be spent on investigation and design. If there are things that we can do and get in early and do some early work, we will do. We'll be looking for opportunities. So we are fast tracking it. So the normal pattern is that you will spend a period doing design, but if there are some quick wins for us, we'll do it.
So did you say that the rest of this month, the rest of this year will be on design?
Sorry, we'll have a project. We'll have a project management plan by the end of this month. The work that happens after that, we'll see what that programme is.
But ballpark sort of.
Oh, there will be a period of a few months at least while we do investigations.
Investigations, but actually doing the work. Are we talking 6 months? Are we talking several years? Like, can you give us a bit of a range? I know the plan's not done yet, but
Project like this typically over 2 years. But if there are, as I say, typically you would go through investigation, firm up the scope, do the design, go out for procurement, and do the construction. What we will do, we'll fast track it. If there's parts of that work that we can come in early, buy equipment and do it before that, we will do.
thank you. And I've got a question for Tim, who's been out of the firing line a bit. I'm just around the resource consent. Obviously, we're operating now on a sort of a borrowed time, and it sounds like regional council's kind of running out of patience with that. What is the time frame now for actually getting a new resource consent? And reading the report, kind of sounds like we're not going to be able to keep doing what we've been doing. I'm getting a bit worried.
Yeah, so kia ora koutou, ko Tim Blackman toku ingoa. Yeah, thanks for your question. So this is in regards to the intermittent discharge from the treatment plant to the Waiwhatu. So we've been working with Taranaki Whānui and Ngāti Toa in this Ropu group, and I guess the purpose of that group is to work with mana whenua to set the scene before we start getting into some sort of planning work. I guess what happened in 2017 was the application was lodged with Regional Council. Regional Council put the application on hold given the option Wellington Water took forward at that point wasn't fit for purpose in terms of storage capacity for those times of heavy rains. So we want to sort of set the scene right before we go through that project again, because yeah, it's just there sitting on hold. So it's been sitting on hold for 6 years now. So yeah, operating under Section 124, having catch-ups with Regional Council was every 4 weeks. It's now every 6 weeks. It's not set out in the paper. However, I will add, we've been directed to work in partnership with mana whenua and set the scene and work in this way. We've also brought Hutt City Council into this ropu. So Bruce has been attending from just this week. And look, we're starting to think about a bit of a time frame, but this is not a simple solution. We've got an old outfall pipeline. We've got more rains coming into the treatment plant through holes in the pipes. We've got connections to other work streams. For example, the network discharges, which is looking to improve those discharges in the network, which could have implications for the amount of waters coming to the treatment plant. So it's not a simple one. So we are starting to look at it from more of a system. Right, in terms of timeframes, we're kind of getting to that, but we don't have those firmed up at this stage. But look, in 3 months, we will probably be in a place where we can give you some solid timeframes.
Yeah, I guess my concerns are that, the paper says the end goal is going to be an improved outflow pipe, which is a very long project. It's not a quick win. But the report says GWRC has advised that it expects progress on a new application to be given priority with reliance on Section 124 no longer an option. So I'm kind of thinking what's happening between it now no longer being an option and a new outfall pipe could be decade. Like, it could be a very long time. Are we going to start seeing sort of infringement notices from GWRC if we keep discharging into the Waiwhatu stream, or is GWRC pretty comfortable that the timeframes we're talking about and the process we're going through is going to satisfy their needs, or are we going to potentially hit a roadblock?
Yeah, it's a difficult question to answer, because they've asked us to work in partnership with mana whenua and set the scene in this in the way that we are doing. However, they also want us to resolve the consenting issue and come off section 124. So it's trying to use this. Yeah, it's a difficult question to answer because, you know, Bruce, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, I think Greater Wellington want to just see progress. So it's been stalled for some time. Greater Wellington have said that in working through to a solution, we need to work in this way with mana whenua groups, and that's happening now. So I think as long as there is progress down a path that's going to lead to an outcome, then GW should be reasonably comfortable with that.
And I'll just add to that and say, you know, applying for a consent, well, we tried that with the storage tanks, and, you know, we need a huge number more of storage tanks to get consent via that pathway. So this is really our only option, is to look at the big picture, to look at the full system and to try solve it.
Sorry, I'm just losing the plot a little bit here, working on an additional resolution, which I'll mention soon. But next we had Councillor Griffiths and then Councillor Newell. Oh, okay. Councillor Newell?
Yeah, I just want to clarify. Have we been consulting for 6 years?
So in around September 2017, the application was lodged with the Regional Council, 6 months before the former discharge consent was to lapse, so in around March 2018. The Council looked at the application and it was put on hold sometime in the earlier part of 2018. I've been on this task for around 11 months, and so I can't probably tell you too much before that point. What I can say is we've been working in partnership with Taranaki whānui and Ngāti Toa since around October, with Ngāti Toa joining in January. So they've been in tūhui for this issue.
Thank you. Any more questions? There's appear to be none. Thank you. Any more comments from the officers? Otherwise, we'll move into debate. All right. Before I move the noting of the report, I'm just working with Catherine Stannard here on an additional recommendation relating to the key additional reports and information that's been required. So we have that on our minutes. So we'll put that up on the screen shortly. How are you going, Catherine? Perhaps I'll just read out the essence of it while Catherine gets it typed up. Councillor Griffiths.
So we do need a resolution or a vote against it or towards it. Do we not just add it to our work stream and at the end of our meeting?
I think so, but given the importance of the matters discussed and the community concern, I think it would be good to have it expressed in our resolutions for today.
No, that's great, thank you.
I'll just read out the essence of the additional recommendation while Catherine types it up. So it's along these lines. Requests officers to report to the next meeting of the Hutt Valley Services Committee covering 1, the history and plans relating to odour complaints at the wastewater treatment plant. 2, an update on the communications program relating to odour complaints at the treatment plant. And 3, details of the capital investment plans for the following 10 years at the wastewater, again relating to the wastewater treatment plant. How does that sound to members?
I'll move that.
Perhaps we'll take it based on the words, and Catherine will reflect that in the minutes in due course. So moved, Councillor Carsons. I'll second that. Catherine, do we just take a debate on that amendment, or we take the whole? So we'll take, perhaps with that, we'll take the whole thing together. So Councillor Carter, are you happy to move the original recommendation plus that amendment? And I'm happy to second that. So we'll just go into debate. I hope we don't have like a repeat of the matters expressed in the questions, but if members feel there's particular points they want to make now, here we go. Councillor Dyer.
Yeah, I really feel for the public. This is particularly around Seaview and the odour issues. Really do feel for the public at the moment. They've been extremely patient for something that really affects their day-to-day lives. I work in the area and my daughter's school in the area, so I frequent it, but I don't live there, and I can't imagine how bad it is actually living there, not going to have barbecues and use the outdoor space. Things were sort of brewing towards the end of last year, and the public meeting was held, and I think there was a great move by Wellington Water and Veolia. But at that meeting, a lot of assurances were given that, hey, we've realised we've dropped the ball a bit here on the comms, we're going to step things up. And we're now sort of into March, and there's still not been any emails to this group about what's actually happening with the biofilter. I understand there's been a few notifications about upcoming maintenance, but that's not sort of what was assured back in December. The public, there really is two issues. One is the comms piece, which it sounds like we're now sort of getting to a place where that will improve, which is great news. But the bigger issue is what's actually happening with the odour, and none of that has been communicated with the public. The December meeting, there was some updates on what was happening with the biofilter, but reading the report now, the biofilter hasn't fixed all the issues, and it's not going to now. It's where it is. We know there's more work that's needed, and it sounds like it's a very long time plan, but that just hasn't been communicated with the public. So yeah, I'm really feeling for the public at the moment. I hope we can get this right. I understand it's very expensive and long-term work, but we just need to keep the public informed about what's actually happening. And sometimes that means sending out an email, which isn't good news, but it's news. At the moment, they're just completely in the dark. Extremely alarmed to hear that members of the public are having to use the OAA process just to get onto a mailing list to be informed about what's happening at the plant. But it sounds like officers are going to take that seriously and get that sorted. But the public shouldn't have to come to these sort of big formal meetings to read long reports about odour issues. They should be proactively in front of them about what's going on, because that's what we said we'd do in December. So I'm happy to support the recommendation with these improvements, but it's not going to fix the issue. But we need to be just front-footed with the community and let them know what's going on.
Thank you, Councillor Dyer. Any further comments from members? If not, I'll just perhaps finish off. Oh, Councillor.
I just want to note that things seem to move at an absolutely glacial speed. You know, 6 years, the outfall pipe, for example, 6 years, and we're still in the consultation phase and still in the, wow, we need to spend another 6 months pulling together plans. You know, honestly, it just seems to me that this cycle goes on and on and on with this committee. And we're still talking about things that were on the agenda years ago.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further comments? Perhaps before we final one before we vote, I just thank you all for the good round of questions and comments. Thank you, officers, for taking that on board, and we look forward to getting more detailed information, updates on the comms plan and so on at our next meeting, and hopefully, I mean, that's a few months away, so I hope there's plenty of good work done between now and then. Catherine, do you have something just to put up on the screen for the members of the audience, perhaps, before we vote, or shall we? So there's the additional recommendation there, just for a quick read before we take the vote. All happy? If so, I'll put those recommendations. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Any against say no. Declare that carried. Thank you. Right. We're now on to item 8 on our agenda, which is an update on the Silverstream landfill and resource recovery. It's Jeff Roberts, and I see Jörn Was it just Ewan?
I'll be taking this one today as Jeff is at another meeting.
Okay, thank you, Ewan. Do you have any comments to make in introducing the report?
No comments to make other than to draw your attention to the PFAS item, the persistent organic compounds, that there was a question asked on this and we've included that in the paper. So just drawing your attention to that. Otherwise, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. We'll move forward to questions. Do any members have a question of the officer? Looks like you're getting off lightly there, Ian. Maybe we've been burnt out a bit on the previous item, but thank you for the thorough... Oh, yes, we do have a question from Councillor Griffiths.
I've actually asked this question in a pre-meeting, but I'll ask it again. It was around timeframes. We've got a report in here around lizard removal or relocation from the dig sites, from the new site that we're opening up. Has there been a lot of time delay with the additional lizard moving requirements?
It does have an impact on the deforestation part of that operation. So basically, as they open up the phase 3 lands, when they found more lizards, it basically means that they have to go through the process to identify them. But my understanding is we're now at the end of that aspect. So, and when you go to the site today, you'll see there isn't actually much left. So I think my understanding is that we're still on track in terms of the construction phase of it.
Councillor Parkin.
Kia ora. So just looking at the airspace utilisation and the prediction for the red line at 16,000 tonnes per month, I presume we can control that number, quantity coming in if it gets close to breaching the amount of airspace that we've got by reducing the amount of large material that's been accepted from other locations.
Yeah, so if you have a look at that page 37 on the upper left side, there is a monthly breakdown of the amount of total waste coming into Silverstream. And you may recall at one of the last meetings, we said that we were quite concerned about the significant uplift and waste coming in. And if that had continued, or if that were to continue for the next year or 2 years, we would effectively get to a point where we'd have to shut the landfill because it's full and the next phase isn't open yet. However, at the time, we also said that we're proactively managing this. So we are reviewing special waste applications, which tends to be those applications that involve contaminated soil. So that's large volumes of material that, while contaminated, is effectively dirt. So we have rejected a number of applications, and that has had the desired effect of bringing down the amount of waste that we've been receiving, and particularly, I think December was looking very good again, and since then it's been around or between 12,000 and 14,000 tonnes, which is the limit effectively. We don't want to have more than 14,000 on average coming in. So we are proactively managing it, although having said that, we can only really control special waste applications. General refuse comes in and we don't have any real ability to say no. Yes, and this is despite all the diversion activities that we have been working on. And here the context really is that construction and demolition waste, and particularly, is very large volume. And I know there's a lot of public interest in things like recycling lids and dental floss recycling schemes, but they don't really make a big dent when it comes to these things. So we're working on slightly bigger initiatives, and that involves, for example, the new facility that Waste Management is proposing, which would involve a C&D or construction and demolition diversion facility or processing facility. So those, once in place, including the facility in Porirua that they're working on, that has significantly more potential to actually divert material.
Thank you. Councillor Griffiths, and then Councillor Newell.
You raised the comment around the PFAS, contaminated soils. On paragraph 22, no specific direction for Silverstream landfill to receive the contaminated soils. Who would make that direction to us if there was going to be a direction from somewhere? Is it central government will just imply or push out that somebody has to take it and wear it, or?
No, there's no such direction, and I'm not expecting any. I mean, there is only a few landfills that are effectively consented to take materials such as that, and as described in the in paragraphs 16 to 22. I mean, there's a lot of PFAS material. Some of it, like obviously the most high-profile material is the contaminated soil from airfields with this firefighting foam. But PFAS is in a number of materials, including jackets, like water-resistant jackets, for example. That those are persistent organic compounds. So it's or think about furniture like couches that have some sort of impregnate, that layer on top that makes it a little bit less prone to getting soiled. So that stuff, once it ends up in the landfill, effectively just adds to the PFAS load, if you like.
Maybe I need to reword my question a little bit differently. We've got the option to not take this product into our landfill from other areas, so we turn it down. We just say, no, we wouldn't take because there's so few landfills that can take it, not will take it. So if we were to start declining applications for this stuff to come in, then everybody declines it. There's all of a sudden a big clean-up at an airfield somewhere where there's millions of tons of dirt need to go somewhere. Who would make that recommendation or that direction, and is it a likelihood that could ever happen?
That's a good question. I mean, it's something that our council could decide, that we just say we don't want the material anymore. I guess the question is, well, what do you do with the material? Because if it is, say, at risk of contaminating groundwater somewhere else, then putting it in the landfill, I guess, is at least a safer place for it. But yeah, once it gets into the leachate and gets into the trade waste system, you can't really treat for it. Having said all that, we're currently working with a company to conduct potentially a trial of a technology that would be able to treat contaminated soil with PFAS to basically break it down into non-contaminants. So there are technologies available to potentially deal with the substances in a different way, other than just putting it into a landfill, and that's one of the things we're looking at the moment.
That would then end up with a diversion, so you clean the dirt pretty much, and then the dirt would be usable for other items, and then the PFAS will go into the dump.
Yep, that would basically mean decontaminating soil. I mean, it probably won't work for all sorts for every material, but unrelated to PFAS, there is a facility that I'm aware of that Fulton Hogan is investing in Canterbury. So they're building a plant to decontaminate contaminated soil. So if it's lightly contaminated with organic compounds, then there is a way of, for example, washing the material, generating new aggregate. So there are opportunities like that. I guess in the past, they haven't really bubbled to the top because landfilling was just too cheap. With the waste levy increasing and landfilling becoming more expensive, you're now getting into a point where some of those technologies are becoming cost effective, and so that's when you start to see a swing away from landfilling.
On a totally different note, the plant at the bottom of the Haywards Hill, Manor Park plant, I know it's not a council-run thing, but have you had any update or any information around that?
I think we've commented on it in paragraphs 29 to 30. So there's no further update. It's still within the consent process, and my understanding is that there's actually 2 consent applications, and the one that's currently, I guess, holding up progress is around the access to State Highway 2. So my understanding is the NZTA, New Zealand Transport Agency, is working with the applicant and trying to resolve what that access would look like in terms of the truck movements, for example.
Councillor Newell?
Just as sort of a follow-up there, the actual comms, is the Hutt City Council putting out comms to the residents about the progress? Because somebody from Manor Park asked me if I knew what was happening and where things were at.
So my understanding is that sits with the consents team and the planning, on the planning side. So Tim Johnstone is the manager and Alison Geddes, the director, might want to comment on this. That sits outside of my area of scope.
Yes, we've been working quite closely with the residents. There's some who are in constant contact with us because they are feeling quite aggrieved by what's going on. But we have had a big public meeting with them. And I think there's a little bit of a misunderstanding about what is actually going on because they don't understand that there's actually two different consents. And the one they're working on at the moment is just preparing the site. But the other one, there's no decision has been made on whether it's notified or non-notified yet. Some residents are feeling that they haven't been consulted, but that actually hasn't started yet. But we certainly are. We have probably daily, certainly weekly contact with the residents. And if anybody wants to know anything about it, then you really need to talk to us. Tim Johnson is the planning manager who knows all about that.
Thank you, Ms. Geddes. Any further questions? If not, let's move to the recommendation. I'll move that the committee receives and notes the report. Have a seconder, Councillor Griffiths. With a mover and a seconder, any debate on the item? If not, I'll move the recommendations there. Oh, sorry, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, no. Declare that carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Schutzer. Okay, item 9, the Akatara Cemetery update. Thank you, Mr. Latimer, and I'm sorry I've forgotten the name of your colleague.
Just like to introduce Gunter Wild. He's our acting Director of Operations and, sorry, Director of Asset Management Operations. Yeah, I'll just hand that over to him.
Good morning, Chair, Mayor, Councillors. My name's Gunter Wild. Since Jeff was promoted into our Chief Executive position at Upper Hutt City Council, I've been brought in a temporary capacity to backfill the Director of Asset Management and Operations at Upper Hutt. Despite the German name, I'm a born and bred Wellingtonian. I've got over a couple of decades experience in the region, both in central and local government, particularly in the infrastructure area, including about 10 years ago, I used to sit on what was then called the Capacity Senior Leadership Team. Part of my portfolio was actually interfacing with both Upper Hutt City Council and Hutt City Council. So I've got a bit of experience in the Three Waters area, including undertaking asset management planning as well as a strong interest in transport. So good morning.
Thank you very much. And now I knew your name was familiar. So officers, as mentioned earlier, I wonder if you could just give a brief overview of how we may respond to Daniel. I know he's a regular but raises a number of questions. What are your thoughts on that, please?
Yeah, yes, I had a read of his submission last night. Obviously, he's got a few issues. You know, the reference to how the capacity is measured. I have full confidence in the consultants that are working on the design detail. I mean, the estimates that we've given to date are simply estimates based on a concept. When the detailed design's completed, there'll be a far more accurate calculations with regard to capacities. I'm not really sure what his real his issues really are. Really, it's yeah. I just accept what he's saying and saying, well, okay, his figures may differ from our estimates. That's fine. The other issues.
Sorry if I can just
yeah, sure.
interrupt. I saw a number of his questions related to possible land in the lower Hutt, which may be not a matter that you would be expected to comment on. So I'm wondering, perhaps maybe it's a question for Ms. Geddes, I'm not sure, but do we need someone from Hutt City Council perhaps to at some point get back to him in relation to those questions which are before the committee, but I don't see the committee necessarily being in a place to answer them. What's your views on that?
Sorry, I did read somewhere that there's funds being put aside in Hutt City in the LTP for looking at additional burial land. I'm not sure where that's gone, whether it's still in there or not. But yeah, we are putting our eggs in the basket up here. But we've known that for many, many years.
Okay, well, thank you. I'll just leave it with you now to comment. Any other further comments on the report?
Yep, I had a meeting with Arthur Nelson, head of Parks and Gardens, the other Friday. He's only been here for 10 weeks, so his knowledge, the background of the history of the whole thing was, he needed to brush up on that, and I expect to hear back from him very shortly about how we're going to go forward, basically determine who's going to be involved in the review, the terms of reference, timelines and things like that. Apart from that, I say the cemetery development is progressing quietly in the background with the consultants doing more detailed work on the design. Hopefully we're going to get something in the next couple of months at least to give us a better idea of where everything's going to go. Apart from that, I don't have much else to add. Is there any questions?
Councillor Parkin?
Kia ora, through you, Chair. So when that detailed design comes back, will we be able to have a breakdown of what the calculations are used to determine the number of plots? And hopefully that will alleviate Chris's questions, Daniel Crisp's questions, sorry. And the other question is through our own officers, so I'll hold it for a sec.
Absolutely, would expect that information to come back, depending on the land, or say the land that is available, what it's basically suitable for, double interments or ashes plots or whatever. There's going to be limitations in some areas, but we'll certainly get that. That's a critical piece of information. Yep.
Councillor Newell?
Thank you, Chair. Just sort of following on from my comments earlier about things moving at a glacial pace, the agreement review, what timeline have we got on that, please?
I'm not actually aware of a timeline, to tell the truth, Councillor. As I said, I'm hoping to hear back from Arthur. I expected it last week, actually, to tell the truth, but yeah, and I haven't heard from him, but I'm sure he's just getting his head around the issues that he's facing at the moment.
Any, Councillor Carson?
Okay, so once again, I expect that this committee receive a report from Brett and from Arthur Nelson, setting out the terms of reference and a timeline for completion of the agreement review. And I expect that to come to the May committee, please. So that's my first point and request, and I'd like to include that in as a recommendation. And the other one is, it talks about here in that para 6, a review team or a steering group. Now, a steering group does nothing basically except steer, but a review team actually does the mahi. So I hope it's a review team, not a steering group, because we're going to end up with a bureaucratic structure to do a simple agreement review between the two councils. So hopefully, I would hope to see in the terms of reference that a review team is set up with people from Hutt Council and Hutt City Council who will actually look at the agreement review and how it's working and negotiate a proposed revision of the agreement review if it's required. But my expectation is that the May meeting we consider the terms of reference, the structure of the review, who's actually doing the review, and a timeline.
So as we're still in question time, I'll just take that as a question to, would that be possible to meet that request?
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. So we'll add a recommendation, probably a concise one, just asking for a report covering a couple of key elements. Maybe when we come to the moving, and you could remind us, Councillor Carson, of the appropriate wording. Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Dyer.
Thank you. I'm not too sure what Upper Hutt City Council's climate change goals are, but at Hutt City we've got a target of reducing by 50% by 2030. On the previous paper on the landfill, we've got sort of half a page there of climate change impacts and considerations, and it's a regular thing we have on every single report that comes to Hutt City, just sort of talking about what things are happening. So my first question is, what's being done at the cemetery to decarbonise not so much the burial methods, but more the machinery that's used, that kind of stuff? And is it possible to have this climate change consideration as a section in future reports, just to kind of keep a tab on what is happening in this space?
I guess anything's possible. It's something that we probably haven't thought about too much up there. We've recently bought in a ride-on mower to bring that operation in-house. There weren't that many options of doing an electric sort of version on that. We've got small hand motors as well, which could go battery. It's a very small, I guess, gain, if you like to say. The digger up there, there's certainly no options for a 5.5 tonne electric digger. There may be some now, but if you need something in on that, I'm not sure. I'll have to get my head around how that would run.
Yeah, I think it'd be worthwhile including it. Like, obviously the landfill's also very big, heavy machinery intensive there, and we're just bringing in the Southern Hemisphere's first electric excavator. And we've got huge funding from the government to co-fund doing that, which is going to have huge benefits for the region, not just the landfill in terms of the charging infrastructure that's needed. We'll be able to charge a lot more stuff going forward. Like the batteries from that charger could easily be taken to Akatara Cemetery to power any equipment there as well. So it's definitely something I think this committee doesn't really have any oversight of at the moment, so I think it'd be good to include it in the future.
Okay, thank you. I don't think we need a recommendation on that one, but the officers noted that request. Councillor Griffiths.
Could I just in that vein ask Brett, the considerations are made, it's just not reported on, is that pretty much right? So you actually look at electric lawnmowers or electric diggers, or look for in our procurement process. You're just not reporting on it in our papers, is that correct?
Well, yeah, I had reported on it, but we say with the digger, that option was looked at and discarded. It was something that wasn't budgeted for either. Same with the mower thing. It's been difficult because it hasn't been in our long-term plan or been budgeted for in the operation. But we've certainly made some operational savings by bringing a lot of this work back in-house. Something to look forward in the future, I think. Yeah, plan for.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Latimer and Gunther. Just move on now to the recommendation. I'll move that the committee receives and notes the report. Could I have a seconder, please? Second, Mayor Guppy. Any debate? I'll put the motion. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, no. That's carried. Thank you. Oh, sorry, and an additional one, we'll take that one separately then. Catherine, I think you've got some words there up on the screen now. If you're happy, Councillor Carson, you may wish to move that.
So I think it should be set out the terms of reference, including project review structure and timeline for the completion of the agreement review. Is that right?
I'm just going to say my concern about the recommendation is that does it delay us in moving forward for another quarter?
Perhaps I'll make a comment. I wouldn't see it necessarily being that way, and that we were necessarily approving it, that things may progress in the meantime, but we would get to see what's on the table and what's underway. Would that be your understanding, Mr. Latimer?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not going to slow things down. It'll just, yeah, I don't know what the review's going to show. There could be all sorts of things that is looked at and reviewed as part of the team or the task team. Sorry, what did he call it again? Whatever it was. I mean, it's going to come back and, yeah, the recommendations will go moving forward.
Perhaps ideally we'd have that information, but also an update on progress. Councillor Castor, you happy to move? And Councillor Dyer second. Any further discussion? I'll put that now. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, no. And that's carried. Thank you. Item 10 on page 42 is the Hutt Valley Services Committee Forward Programme for 2024. I'll just draw your attention to that. Do any members have any questions of the officers relating to the work programme? Appears not. I'll move the recommendation that committee receives and notes the forward programme for 2024 attached as Appendix 1 to the memorandum. A seconder, please. Councillor Newell, thank you. Any discussion? I'll put the item. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, no. That's carried. That's carried. Now, if I'm correct, now we're through to the closing karakia, which is up on the screen. Invite you just to say it along with me. Unahia, unahia, unahia e te uru tapunui, kia wātia, kia mama, te nako, te tinana, te wairua e te ara takatu. Koe rā e rongo, whakairihia aki ki runga, kia wātia, e rā kua wātia, hau pai Mārie.